antagonists are in a lot of series, and this is especially true in manga/anime. Of course, we've seen a good amount of antagonists that have been made in anime/manga series, and of course, when you make a good antagonist, it makes that series even more interesting, and a lot of people start to really enjoy that series because they want to learn more about the antagonist in that series. What's their backstory? Why are they doing this? How far are they willing to go to reach their goals? But even though we have seen a ton of antagonists in manga/anime series, there's also been kind of different categories to label some of the antagonists. For example, you have the antagonists who are not just only extremely strong or OP, but they're also very smart and they're good at manipulating people or using certain situations to benefit them. On the other hand, you also have antagonists that think that they are the good guys and think that what they're doing is actually okay and they don't see any issues with them. And that's something that goes to show that some of these antagonists can become very twisted and believe that what they're doing is actually a good thing. And of course, lastly, you have the category in which you have antagonists that are just straight up crazy. Not only are they ruthless, but they will show how far they're willing to go in order to create massive death and destruction, because for them, death and destruction is not a big deal. They only care about themselves, and in some cases for them, death and destruction is something completely normal and they're perfectly fine doing it. And of course, it doesn't just apply to the shonen genre. Of course, there's other genres of manga/anime series that they also have good antagonists as well, whether it's an isekai, a shoujo, etc. There's been a lot of other antagonists that are not just in the shonen genre. And in today's video, I want to talk about a certain antagonist that's not only terrifying but has no redeeming qualities about them. And the series I'm going to be mainly focusing on is To Your Eternity. To Your Eternity is a series that came out in the spring anime of 2021, and currently it's running its season 2 episodes right now in this fall season. Now, of course, one thing I need to mention is that I am not a source reader. I have only watched the To Your Eternity anime, so basically I'm anime only. So I'm not going to be talking about things that happen in the manga because I haven't read the manga. Also, spoiler alert, because if you haven't watched To Your Eternity, I highly recommend you watch it because it's a really great series. And I would be lying if I said that this series wasn't an emotional roller coaster, because there's just so many things that happen in this series that just really gets really sad and really dark, and really there have been many moments in this series that have made me tear up a bit. So yeah, highly recommend you watch this series. So what is To Your Eternity about? Well, to keep the plot very simple, it's about how this orb that at the time is only called It comes down to Earth and is being observed from afar. Now, one thing that makes this orb really special, it can actually change forms from beings whose reflection it captures, and the first thing it becomes is a rock. But of course, later on as the series continues, a wolf dies near it, and as a result it changes to a wolf. And of course, as the series goes on, he starts to meet new people and meet new things about the world. But sadly, one thing that I need to mention, like I mentioned earlier, is that there's going to be a lot of dark and sad moments, because this is best shown when the wolf, which is the orb that's taking its shape, meets the wolf's master, which at first the orb doesn't think anything of it because it lacks any human emotions, because once again it's an orb. But as the series goes on, he starts to really see what life is all about, and one of the things the orb will experience a lot is death, and the first person that they will see be dead is the boy itself. And of course, after his death, the orb will become a copy of the boy, and of course this leads to him exploring the world and seeing what life is all about, but of course also experiences death while exploring the world. Now you may be saying, what does this have to do with antagonists? This series does have an antagonist, and it's probably one of the most terrifying antagonists I've seen in a while because of how far this antagonist is willing to do in order to reach her goals. That's right. This antagonist's name is Hayase. Hayase in To Your Eternity is not only terrifying, but also a character that you could easily hate because of everything she does in this series. And the reason why she does all this is for one thing, is because she wants to be with Fushi. Yep, that's right. That's the reason why she's doing a lot of terrible things in this series, is because she's obsessed with Fushi. Ever since Hayase met Fushi for the first time, she's been obsessed with him and wants him all to herself. And when I mean she wants him all to herself, she literally means that she's willing to kill anybody that Fushi associates with or gets close to because she wants him all to herself. Now, I've seen some discussion in which some people who have actually watched the series say that the only reason why Hayase is obsessed with Fushi is not because she is madly in love with him, it's because she's more interested in his powers, because Hayase knows that Fushi is an immortal who actually can live forever for the rest of his life. Now, whichever case is, it doesn't really matter, because the fact is she's still insane and she is willing to do a lot of terrible things just to get closer to Fushi, even though Fushi has clearly shown that he is not interested in her in the slightest. And what's even more terrifying and even more disgusting is that she was responsible for the deaths of March and Perona, two characters that actually grew close with Fushi, and Fushi seemed to really enjoy and have a good time with them. Hayase killed them both, and it seems that even though she was responsible for these two deaths, she didn't really mind them, and most as if these deaths didn't really matter to her, which goes to show just how much of a lack of human emotions this antagonist has. No matter what she does, for her it's nothing, because at the end of the day it doesn't matter. As long as it's not Fushi being the one that's hurt, she doesn't really care what happens to other people around him. And if you want more proof just how evil Hayase is, during the Janada Island arc, Hayase reveals to Fushi that she was the one that was responsible for Perona's death, and to make it even more disgusting, she goes into every little detail as to what she did with Perona. Not only did she not kill her right away, but when she's describing how she killed her, it's very clear that she has no guilt or doesn't even show a hint of sadness. And to top it all off, the reason why she did all this is because according to her, she did this to protect Fushi. Yep, that's right. That's the reason why she killed innocent people, is just so that she could protect Fushi, because she claims that she's devoted her entire life to protecting Fushi. Now, of course, this makes Fushi extremely angry and disgusted for what Hayase did, but Hayase doesn't really seem to mind. In fact, it doesn't really matter if Fushi's angry at her or not, as long as she's the only one that's around him. That's all that matters, and that's what makes Hayase a really terrifying antagonist, because unlike other antagonists in which they have like some deadly powers, Hayase has no powers. There's no special abilities with Hayase. She's good at fighting and has skills of a fighter, but that's only it. At the end of the day, she's just a person, a very insane, twisted person that clearly is somebody that you should stay away from, and is the definition of evil, because there's no redeeming qualities with Hayase. In other cases, there's been antagonists in which you do sometimes have sympathy for, and in some cases you do feel bad, but at the same time you also realize that what they're doing is wrong, but you can kind of understand why they came to be the person they are or why they think that way. With Hayase, it's the complete opposite. Hayase is doing things that no normal person will ever do. There's no justification for what she does, because at the end of the day, what she's doing is something really terrible that nobody should be doing, and the reason why she's doing it is just as insane, because the reason why she's doing it is all for an obsession that she has with an immortal. That's about it. There's no redeeming qualities about Hayase, and the worst thing is that she keeps getting away with it. If you have watched season 1, she got away with a lot of terrible things. Now you may be saying, why didn't our main protagonist Fushi kill her? If she was doing this many terrible things, why didn't Fushi just end her life? Well, here's the thing. If this is something that he had done, he also would have given her something that she wanted, which was also be killed by Fushi. You see, she has stated numerous times in the series that the only reason why she's doing all this is because she wants Fushi to herself. But not only that, but she also states how if Fushi were to snap and kill her, she'll be happy. She'll be happy to die by Fushi's hands, because there's no other person she would rather get killed by other than Fushi. And she also states how if she were to be killed by Fushi, Fushi would be a copy of her, because remember, Fushi's abilities is that whenever something is close to him, he's able to be a copy of that thing. And of course, this implies to Hayase as well. If Fushi were to kill Hayase, he will be a clone of Hayase, and that's what Hayase wants, because in her twisted mind, she believes if that's were to happen, then she'll pretty much be living for the rest of her life. She'll be immortal as well, and that is something that Fushi doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to give what Hayase wants, because that's going to be, as a result, pretty much a win for her. Even if she were to get killed, that will be a victory for her. Sure, she's dead, but for her, that will be something that she always wanted, to be killed by Fushi, because she is that obsessed with Fushi. And even though she was defeated in the Yanada Island arc, at the end of the day, this left a huge impact on Fushi, because he got to see how somebody could be really evil. Fushi never experienced this ever. He never saw somebody be truly evil, and despite Hayase not getting anything she wanted, she did not get Fushi all to herself, or able to get Fushi to kill her with his own hands. Her ideals and her obsession with Fushi never went away. As shown in season 2 quite recently is the fact that there's actually descendants of Hayase, in which they're also determined to be by Fushi's side, even though it's very clearly shown in many cases that Fushi's not a fan of them and doesn't want them to be near him. They are determined to go wherever Fushi goes, as long as they're able to be close to him. And I think that's really the most terrifying thing about this, is because it's these kinds of antagonists that are the most terrifying. Sure, even if they were to be defeated and be be killed and no longer in the world, if their ideals and their beliefs are still lingering in the world, that just goes to show how much of a lasting impact they had. The fact that even though the antagonist, and in this case Hayase, is no longer in this world, her ideals and her obsession with Fushi are still alive through her descendants. And I think Hayase is a perfect example as to how to make a terrifying villain without being too complicated. Hayase wasn't terrifying because she had an overpowered ability or she had some sort of secret abilities that no one can match. She was a person who was obsessed with Fushi, thought that what she was doing was okay, had a very twisted love for Fushi even though it was very clear Fushi was not interested in her. Not only that, but was perfectly fine killing people that were close to Fushi or people Fushi really liked, also that she could keep him all to herself, lacked human emotion, and as well was not afraid to show her true intentions. She was very open as to how insane she was and what she was willing to do just to be close to Fushi, and I think that's what really makes Hayase a really terrifying antagonist into Your Eternity. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire video. I highly recommend you watch Your Eternity, and I'm really excited to see what season 2 is going to show because I just know that there's going to be a lot of things to come in season 2, so I'm really looking forward to the future episodes. And with that, that's pretty much the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.